Episode 7. She arrives in the garden at night without making any sound that registers as presence. The flowers smell sweet. Then Lloyd's head starts hurting and his fingers go numb, and he realizes with quick, clear recognition that the sweet smell is poison. He casts Purify, which neutralizes every known toxin in the medical catalog. Nothing happens. The visitor appears from shadow. She is composed, even apologetic. She was not trying to kill him, she says. She just did not want to cause trouble with the child. Her name is Ruin, and she is the Poison Blighted, a rare category of individual born with mana of a fundamentally different nature from ordinary humans, one that manifests in her case as a perpetual biological toxin she cannot stop producing. Her poison bypasses known antidotes because she transmutes its nature with her own mana, making it something outside the catalog that Purify works from. She learned to use it deliberately rather than just passively emit it. That is how she put it to work. Lloyd, tracking her through the peculiar absence she creates rather than any detectable presence, finds her quickly after she vanishes. He follows the trace all the way to the Assassin's Guild's hideout. The guild is 6 people. Run, who he already met. Babylon, whose body bends and folds in ways that violate what joints should be capable of. The Warp Blighted, born with connective structure that can compress itself to fit through almost any space. Crow, the Dark Raptor, whose spoken words carry binding force. The Curse Blighted, so dangerous he rarely speaks, because any word he voices can become a command reality imposes on whatever he names. Galilea, the Spider, who produces adhesive mana threads, the Web Blighted. And Talia, the 100 Pains, whose ability links her body to anyone within line of sight, so that damage she takes is felt by them, and vice versa. Each of them, at some point, was a person with an uncontrolled ability that the world could not accommodate. Each of them found the guild because of the same person who is now absent, Jade, the leader. The Phantom Blighted, who could teleport anywhere in the world except that he had no control over when or where he went. Lloyd drops his barrier immediately upon seeing them, which baffles Grimm and worries the guild members who are already drawing weapons. He is not interested in defending. He is interested in what these people can do, and no one's abilities come through clearly when everyone is being careful. What follows is not exactly a fight. Lloyd traces Tao's chi techniques as a combat base and moves through the guild's abilities like a researcher through a lab. Babylon's hypermobile body, he can relax at the exact moment of impact to redistribute force across his whole frame, making it nearly impossible to land a debilitating strike, is genuinely novel. Lloyd experiments with it, takes several hits, observes, adapts. Crow's cursed speech, which sends mana-backed words as direct commands into a target's nervous system, is something Lloyd has never encountered. He notes the mechanism, starts formulating countermeasures while still moving. Galilea's webs become a logistical problem for everyone, including Galilea. Talia's pain-sharing ability baffles Lloyd enough that he deliberately triggers it to understand the feedback mechanism, which is exactly as alarming to everyone watching as it sounds. But beneath all of this, something else is happening. As Lloyd cycles through each guild member, he starts seeing the pattern. None of them have full control over their abilities. Rin cannot stop leaking poison without deliberately regulating it second by second. Crow cannot speak normally without affecting everyone around him. Galilea's webs are sticky to everything regardless of intent. Babylon's flexibility means his body sometimes bends when he does not want it to. Talia cannot use her power without risking her allies as much as her targets. These abilities did not come with instruction manuals. They came with isolation and fear and the constant effort of managing something that the world treated as a curse. Lloyd stops the fight. He begins, instead, to work. He engraves a regulatory spell directly onto Galilea's body, inside the skin, following the mana pathways, calibrating the flow of the web-producing energy. He has never done this before on a living person. It works. Galilea stands up and produces a controlled thread, aimed exactly where he intends. He stares at his hands like he is seeing them clearly for the first time. Lloyd does the same for the others. Crow speaks a full sentence without anything happening unless he means it. Babylon's body moves when he tells it to. Talia can adjust who she is and is not connected to. Rin realizes she can breathe without managing every second, and that the clothes she wears for function rather than choice are no longer necessary the same way. No one in the guild says very much. The guild leader, Jade, is not present. He has been missing for some time, working toward a promise he made them years ago, finding a way to bring them all into the open, somewhere they could live without hiding. Ren, in particular, trusts this promise with everything. By the time Silpha arrives at the guild's hideout and discovers the note Lloyd left, that he has gone to visit the Lord of Lordist's Manor with the Assassin's Guild, The situation at the castle is approaching strategic crisis. Albert, reading the note, has concluded something is very wrong. He is correct. The political context surrounding Lordest has been deteriorating for months, and now the Seventh Prince appears to be inside it voluntarily with a team of known outlaws. Silpha finds Lloyd's clothes. They are covered in Galilea's web adhesive, left out to dry. Albert makes a decision. Episode 8. The letter arrives with no messenger. It simply appears, materialized from nothing in the middle of the guild's hideout, sealed with a mark that only one person uses. Jade's mark. And inside, an apology for being away so long, news that he has taken Lordest from those who were using it to plan a war, and an invitation. Come to the manor. Come home. The guild members who have been holding their hopes in check for this moment can no longer hold them. The letter is proof that Jade is not only alive but has accomplished something extraordinary. He claimed he would give them a place to live in the open, and he has gone ahead and taken an entire territory to do it. But Lloyd, reading the letter over Ren's shoulder, catches something. The delivery itself is the problem. The letter appeared in a specific location with no visual cue, no delay, no error. For someone whose ability is described as uncontrolled teleportation, warping to random locations against his will, to deliver a letter to exactly the right place in exactly the right hands means something has changed. Jade has somehow learned to control his power. That alone is not suspicious, but it is significant. And combined with what Lloyd knows about how complex that feat actually is, transspatial targeting is at the frontier of magical theory, not something learned accidentally. It raises a question he does not immediately answer out loud. Grimm volunteers to accompany the guild ahead. Lloyd will come, he says. He cannot resist the prospect of studying a genuine teleportation ability up close. But he will catch up. They fly, which does not agree with everyone in the group. Babylon bends himself into a configuration that does not help. Ren refuses to admit she is nervous. They stop in the forest before Lordest's manor, rest, and eat. Ren disappears into the trees and comes back with ingredients for a stew made from what she found, and it is genuinely good. The first time she has ever been able to cook for other people, because before the regulatory spell Lloyd placed on her, any food she prepared would absorb her poison and become unsafe. There is a whole world of small things she has never gotten to do. Grimm scouts the manor and reports back. The preparations look like a welcome celebration. No elevated security. No visible aggression. He cannot sense any hostile intent from the people inside. Lloyd takes this as a reasonable green light. They go in. Jade is there. And the reunion is real. Voices raised, people laughing. The specific quality of relief that only comes after a very long wait. And then Jade says something that does not match anything he has ever said before. He looks at the guild with a flatness in his expression that was never there, and he says, "Bow down." Crow's cursed speech was never this powerful. The command hits before anyone can process it, and everyone except Lloyd and Grimm drops. What is in Jade's body is not Jade. The entity introduces itself as Gisarm, a catastrophe from the netherworld, the region beyond the sea, from which demons of a class entirely above what this world has encountered have come before. It crossed to this world specifically for Jade's ability. The teleportation power, which Jade spent his life unable to control, is something Gisarm can use because demons of its level do not require the abstraction of a spell to work with mana. They understand it instinctively, the way a bird knows flight without instruction. Taking Jade's body gave it a vehicle for that power. Controlling the power was simple. Jade did not give it up without a fight. For months, he tried to die. Every time he reached the threshold, Gisarm healed the body and sent him back. The degradation of a mind that has been through that process repeatedly eventually collapses the will entirely. Jade's consciousness no longer exists. But something else does. The words Jade spoke at the very end of his consciousness, directed to no one because he had no way to deliver them. They are still in there somewhere. Gisarm has them, but considers them unimportant. Grimm covers the guild members' escape, taking a hit from Gisarm that would end most things and surviving it through some quality unique to demons of his class. He tells them to run. He tells them to find Lloyd. He does not tell them why, but his voice carries an urgency that communicates what the words do not. The guild flees into the night. Gisarm watches them go, unconcerned. They are the objective of the operation. Blighted bodies make excellent vessels for demons, and collecting them was the purpose of this entire maneuver. Jade was the key that unlocked Lordest. Lordest was the staging ground. The letter was the lure. None of this matters if the prey gets away. Running through the dark with the others, tries very hard to believe that Lloyd will arrive. She has spent enough time around him to understand that the feel of his presence is like the sun, something that makes the space around it warmer and brighter whether it is trying to or not. She runs. She believes. Lloyd will arrive. The question is what he will find when he gets there. Episode 9. Lloyd's arrival is quiet. A single line, spoken into the middle of Gisarm's theater, while the guild members are pinned and Ruin is resisting the demand to sell out her comrades through sheer refusal to speak. That'd be me. The battle that follows is not, from the outside, a battle. From the outside, it is two people moving at speeds that make combat observation almost impossible, with phenomena manifesting and dissolving too quickly for most witnesses to track. From Lloyd's perspective, it is a very interesting problem. Gisarm is a demon lord. Grimm explains the classification. Demons have 10 tiers, 10th being the weakest. The ones they faced on the ground, the bodies Gisarm brought from the netherworld to staff his operation, are 10th class. Pazuzu is 8th. Grimm is 3rd. Gisarm is not on that scale. He is netherworld royalty. A being so far above the tier system that comparing him to first-class demons is like comparing a tsunami to a puddle. His attacks work on a different principle. When an ordinary demon or a mage produces a phenomenon, fire, force, pressure, there is a spell involved, and a spell can be blocked or countered because the barrier works as a wall against that phenomenon. Gisarm does not produce phenomena. He transmutes his mana directly into targeted effects. His mana moves like water, and Lloyd's barriers are sieves. The water passes through the gaps. His cursed speech, far more forceful than Crow's equivalent, slips between barrier layers and reaches whatever it is aimed at. His teleportation, which he calls Shadow Wolf after the ability's original owner, allows him to materialize attacks anywhere he can see. Lloyd's barriers take hit after hit. They hold longer than they should. He runs multiple simultaneous casting sequences while Grimm provides a second voice for the double incantation technique, and even this only slows Gisarm's progress. The walls come apart layer by layer. Then Gisarm uses Shadow Wolf at close range, and the barrier shatters from a physical strike rather than a magical one. Lloyd's answer is to start taking notes. What he is doing, studying the structural composition of Shadow Wolf through observation and analysis in the middle of an active fight against something that could kill him with a poorly timed mistake, is the kind of activity that would make any reasonable person's blood go cold. Grimm communicates this feeling clearly and at length. Lloyd acknowledges the concern and continues studying. Meanwhile, the guild is not waiting. Galilea's newly controlled webbing hardens on contact with air, giving him a second or two of concrete equivalent barrier before any demon can break through it. Crow, who can now speak selectively, uses cursed speech targeted only at enemies. The word fall drops a cluster of demons without touching any allies. Talia, the 100 Pains, turns her ability outward at enormous cost to herself. She shares her body's damage with every enemy in her sight simultaneously, flooding them all with pain that stops them cold. The gate opens. The guild gets out. Talia stays. She cannot run on an injury she has just distributed to everyone around her. She told the others to go without her. Galilea refused to leave. There is a brief, fierce exchange about this, and then Talia makes clear what she intends to do, something that would work as a final action, a way of ensuring no demon follows. And Galilea says he will be there when she strikes the death blow, as if being present is the only thing he can offer and the most important thing he can give. But the death blow does not land in time. Gisarm recovers faster than either of them anticipated. He comes for them both. Then Albert arrives. The second prince of Saloum, at the head of what he has named the Spellbound Sword Corps, crests the ridge and announces himself. The swords his troops carry, Diane's design, Lloyd's enchantments, give their fire substantially more reach than normal, and the sight of organized military force changes the tactical geometry of the courtyard in an instant. Gisarm turns his attention to the new threat, which is exactly what Lloyd needed. From somewhere in the chaos, Lloyd moves. Albert is shouting to find Lloyd. Nobody can tell him where Lloyd is. Somewhere below the castle, above the river, in the middle of a battle that has produced steam and fire, and at least one incident where the ground itself moved, the seventh prince is still working on understanding something he has not yet fully understood. He is close. Episode 10. Before the battle, Silpha was working on a problem she had not told anyone about. Every sword she tested bent under the full weight of her strength. She has been fighting well below her capacity for years because no weapon she has ever held could survive what she is actually capable of. She was calibrating her power against the limits of her tools rather than the limits of her ability. This is not something she complains about, because it is simply the reality of being what she is. But she thinks about it. She is still thinking about it when Albert's force arrives at Lordest and she breaks off to find Lloyd, because wherever there is a fight that Lloyd has walked into, Silpha's place is between Lloyd and whatever that fight is. Albert manages the situation on the ground with the guild. Babylon steps in to help almost immediately, because he was willing to cooperate with anyone who was willing to not immediately kill him, and the second prince turns out to be notably decent about this. The demons controlling the bodies of Lourdes citizens are the true enemy. The people themselves are long gone, their minds erased by the possession process. Albert acknowledges this terrible fact and gives the order to fight without mercy for the occupiers. Albert's spellbound sword core pushes hard. The demons regenerate. The smoke from the spellbound sword's fire output is making close combat nearly impossible for Leroux and for Silpha when she returns. It is a coordination problem. Albert is working it when Silpha finally reaches the castle tower where Lloyd is fighting Guisarme. The demon Silpha finds waiting for her is an 8th-class practitioner of the demon blade form, a swordsmanship style from the Netherworld. He is genuinely skilled. He is also able to regenerate from any damage she inflicts, which means the only way to end this is a blow powerful enough that regeneration cannot close the wound before the body fails entirely. One conclusive strike. She cannot do that with any sword she has ever held. Then Lloyd appears. He is cut. One injury, across the cheek, a graze from Guisarme's work above. He looks like someone who has been in a hard fight and is still thinking through a problem. He hands her a sword. The blade is unlike anything she is trained with. He and Diane made it, Lloyd explains, specifically for her. Not for fire output or dramatic spell effects, but for the properties that matter when a sword master needs to cut something completely. Reinforced strength and reinforced flexibility, layered until the steel can absorb the impact of what Silpha can actually generate. She had been holding back because every sword she touched had limits she could feel. This one does not. He noticed. After 3 years of watching her fight, across hundreds of training sessions, watching her calibrate her strikes against the bend in the blade, he noticed that she was always managing the weapon rather than fully trusting it. He made her something she could trust. She calls the sword Demonbane. There are arguments about the name, all of them good-natured, and then she goes to work. Guisarme's demon host fights with the Lourdes style as well as demon blade form. He has absorbed the memory and technique of the person whose body he occupies, adding their skill to his own. He taunts Silpha with this, with the idea that the person who lived in this body, whose calloused hands speak to years of dedicated practice, has been reduced to a technique library for something that views humans as clothing. Silpha does not argue. She switches from defense to absolute offense. The Langley's dual blade arts, executed at full power with a sword that actually holds, look like something from a different category than combat. The demon tries to match her, tries to apply its superior regeneration, and finds that she is moving fast enough that the damage stacks before anything can close. She names her techniques as she executes them. The demon cannot keep up. Shiro the Bearwolf makes a heroic and deeply inadvisable jump across the gorge, grabs a rope, swings on it, and arrives as backup, which changes nothing about the technical outcome but means a great deal to Silpha regardless. The demon falls. Guisarme, watching from above, is not threatened by any of this. He finds it interesting. He is still waiting for Lloyd to give him something worth his attention. Lloyd, behind Guisarme, has been running a decoy formation, multiple earth constructs shaped like himself, moving in unpredictable patterns, dissolving his real presence beneath a concealment spell while he works through the remaining gap in his understanding of Shadow Wolf. He is very close. He is also bleeding, and has been for some time, because he lowered his barrier to breathe and took a glancing hit. He does not mention this to anyone. Episode 11. In the last moment of Jade's existence, he did something. Guisarme can feel it at the edge of the memory it holds, a residue of deliberate action taken at the very threshold of death, directed somewhere, at something. He cannot see it clearly. There are too many other memories in the way. Jade's friends, their faces, the things he wanted for them. Everything he was fighting to protect, crowding up to the very end. Guisarme does not consider this important. He has the body. He has Shadow Wolf. He announces to his subordinates that Jade was terrified of war, and so the next order of business is a large one. The battle above the river continues to escalate. Lloyd has been flying and fighting for hours by now, and what he is up against is something outside any framework this world has developed to address. Guisarme is patient, confident, and genuinely entertained in the way that something with vast reserves of power is entertained by novelty. He is not trying to win quickly. He wants a show. Lloyd analyzes everything. Guisarme's arsenal breaks down into 3 systems. The first is his mana spears, constructs of pure transmuted mana launched at extraordinary speed and power, capable of piercing standard or even reinforced barriers. Lethal on contact. Fast enough that even Lloyd's movement speed requires constant awareness to avoid. The second is cursed speech, which flows through the spears as a delivery mechanism, bypassing the physical barrier because it is not a physical phenomenon, moving directly into the target system. Taken together, these two mean Lloyd cannot stand still for the spears and cannot let the spears touch him even on a graze. The third and most dangerous is Shadow Wolf, precise teleportation that requires line of sight to a known location. Once Gisarm can see where Lloyd is, the attack arrives instantaneously at that point, with no travel time to dodge around. The key is in that requirement. Line of sight, known location. Lloyd boils the river. The resulting steam cloud turns the battlefield into a white wall of visibility 0. Gisarm loses track of him, and Lloyd stops moving. He has been waiting for this moment. He runs the Spell Taker, a spellbound sword yen made with an absorption enchantment that captures incoming spells and lets the wielder analyze their composition through Gisarm's attacks in the moments available to him, and uses what he extracts to map the structure of Shadow Wolf. It is extraordinarily complex. It is also, at its root, a recognizable thing, a pattern of mana that follows rules, however exotic, and rules can be understood. Jade spent his entire life unable to understand this pattern. The power came without instructions, activated randomly, took him places he had not chosen. He could not make it deliberate, but at the very end, in the final seconds of his consciousness, he did something Gisarm has not identified yet. He left something behind. Lloyd finds it in the composition of Shadow Wolf that the spell taker captures. The spell is laid out cleanly, completely. Every component, every pathway, documented with the precision of someone who spent years desperately trying to understand this thing and finally, at the end of everything, did. Jade figured it out. He transcribed it, and he left it somewhere Gisarm could not find and could not erase, trusting that whoever was fighting this battle would see it. Lloyd does. He formulates his counter in the steam, a detection spell that identifies the exact mana signature of Shadow Wolf as it initializes, linked to his reflexes so that dodge and pursuit fire automatically without requiring conscious decision. Then he builds decoys, earth constructs moving in patterns, one of them carrying the real sword, all of them generating enough visual noise that Gisarm cannot cleanly identify which is the actual target when he finally regains sight lines. The exchange that follows pushes both sides to real limits. Gisarm is frustrated for the first time in the fight, not because he is losing, but because an inferior creature is making him think. He reveals his ultimate technique, the Mortal Dark Sphere, which gathers atmospheric mana in massive quantity and reduces anything it contacts to nothing. No barrier, no spell, no physical object survives it. He intends it to end the fight. Lloyd counters it with Void. The two techniques collide and cancel. Gisarm stares at the aftermath. A human child has produced an equivalent of the Supreme Demon Lord technique from first principles, apparently because he encountered it once in an ancient spell book and decided to experiment. He is, for the first time, genuinely angry. He begins to gather atmospheric mana for another attempt, greater, this time, broader. He can draw on everything in the surrounding area. No barrier Lloyd has will survive it. No evasion will outrun it. Lloyd is still standing. He says, "All magic is rooted in human dreaming. Every spell ever formulated came from wanting something beyond what we could already do, which is why it is limitless. Sorcery is infinitely interesting." Gisarm does not understand this as an argument. He understands it as an opportunity to end the conversation. He charges the Mortal Dark Sphere. Episode 12. The Mortal Dark Sphere does not land. Lloyd hits it with Void from the opposite direction, and the two forces cancel each other in the same way they did before. Gisarm stares at the point where his ultimate attack simply ceased to exist. He demands to know how this is possible. Lloyd explains, with the tone of someone describing an experiment that went slightly sideways, that a long time ago, he set two instances of Void colliding against each other to see what miraculous reaction might result. It was disappointing. They just canceled. He has been curious ever since whether the same principle would hold against an equivalent force from outside. It does. What follows is not elegant. Gisarm is furious now, and fury sharpens his offense, but removes the patience that made him genuinely dangerous. He blasts. Lloyd moves. The mana detection spell fires his reflexes automatically. The pursuit link closes distance when openings appear, and every time Gisarm tries to use Shadow Wolf, the detection trigger fires before the attack can materialize at full effect. Gisarm gathers the atmospheric mana of the entire area for a final attempt, something so large that barriers and evasion and counters should all fail simultaneously. The darkness deepens. The mana around them pulls inward, and then Lloyd does something Gisarm has not prepared for. He does not defend. He does not dodge. He charges forward with Void, linked to every piece of detection and reflexive pursuit work he has built, and lets the two forces meet at the closest possible range. The spatial displacement is catastrophic. Gisarm, caught in the mutual collapse of two dimension-consuming forces at point blank, cannot regenerate faster than the process consumes him. He cannot teleport without the line-of-sight reference he has lost. He cannot fight his way out of a force that his own technique is amplifying. Gisarm is gone. The sun comes up. The steam from the river that Lloyd boiled the night before begins to clear. It was not the night sky they were looking at during the battle. It was the void left behind by the steam cloud, blocking out the dawn. Now the light comes back. Albert finds Lloyd. There is a moment between brothers that is brief, honest, and does not require many words. Then the accounting begins. The Assassin's Guild is alive. Talia and Galilea are injured but present. Rin surfaces from wherever she has been conducting her own contribution to the battle. She has been using her poison to slow the demon force while protecting the people around her, with imperfect control but genuine courage. Albert takes custody of the guild members formally, but listens to what they have to say. They tell him, or Galilea does, about Jade, about the letter as a trap, about what Gisarm was and what it did to their leader's body and mind over months of systematic cruelty. Albert listens to all of it. He is a prince, and he carries that office with the awareness that justice and understanding are not always in conflict. He also identifies that the story the guild told him about why Lloyd was fighting for them is the true story. Because Elise Lesser Fenrir Leroux, who has accompanied the group, would not have allowed Galilea to stand unchallenged if there were deception in the telling. Animals do not negotiate with dishonesty. A memorial is set for Jade. There is no body. Void consumes everything. But the spot is chosen for its light, and Grimm says the tombstone is crooked. Lloyd says it is not. They disagree while Crow says it actually is crooked. What follows is a conversation Lloyd has been preparing for, in his own way. Albert sits him down and is honest. The guild has significant charges against them. They dragged a member of the royal family into a conflict. They have histories of operating in the criminal underworld. The adventuring community is reconsidering their bounties, which means freedom is closer than it has ever been. But an incident tied to the royal family could reverse that entirely. This is serious. Then Albert says something else, in a quieter register. He tells Lloyd that being the seventh prince does not mean nobody cares about him. That he should not always carry things alone. That before he is a prince, he is his little brother, and that counts for something. Lloyd accepts this. He then formally takes the guild as his own retainers, accepting personal responsibility for anything they do from here forward. Albert watches this and understands that Lloyd has made a choice that is genuinely his. Not impulsive, not naive, but deliberate. He approves. Tao arrives, because of course Tao arrives, and brings all the energy of someone who has been running to a rescue and found the rescue already concluded. She pivots immediately into asking about tea with Prince Albert. The guild members observe this with the specific expression of people who are going to enjoy being around chaos that is no longer their own. The tea party that follows is loud and confused and nothing like what tea parties at the palace typically are. Crow's voice, finally free to be used, turns out to carry the specific warmth of someone who has not been able to really speak in years. And there is a moment where that lands on everyone around the table at once. Ren sits with Lloyd at the edge of the water, the river that is now a hot spring from the magma event, which may become a tourist destination, which is not the strangest outcome this situation has produced. She has a question she is not sure how to ask. She wants to work alongside him the way Silpha does. She wants to be there, near this person who looked at her ability and did not see a curse. He tells her yes, but also tells her that there is more work to do. The poison is not a burden to be managed. It is an unexplored chemistry. Pharmacists need to understand substances as complex as what she produces. She could save lives with what she was born with. She had never once considered that. She says she will work hard. Good, he says. And they sit in the morning light together, the first light of a day that begins after a very long night, with everything that comes next still ahead of them and the worst of what they had to endure now done. Lloyd goes home with more to read, more to study, more to understand, and a group of people around him who are not quite sure what to make of that, but who are, at last, beginning to see what it looks like when someone is living exactly the life they chose.